Good evening. Welcome. Hello. How is everybody? Hello, Nathan Oakley. How are you?
I'm very well, very well. Slightly bizarre beginning to our show there.
Well, I thought you'd enjoy some theatre, you thespian.
Yeah, it was very dramatic. Enjoyed it greatly.
I hope so. I'll have to watch it later because I have no idea what it looked like.
Should we get the housekeeping out of the way? Yes, yes, you've got a red ring around your head. Yes, yes, you do have 2 little points. It's just a map.
Tick. Brilliant. How bizarre for God to arrange these things, huh? Wouldn't you say?
Not just coincidence.
Yes.
You have actually lined yourself up with that map, though.
Say again?
You have lined yourself up with it. It is,
Totally.
It is intentional in terms of aesthetically, it looks better when you're lined up with it than if you're off to the side.
Totally. And if it's like this, it's about perfect proportions. If I go like this, it's kind of really weird. But this is just for... Oh, Nathan, let me read you something. I got an email from Jed Skeptic Media. Just one sec. Let me pull it up.
People might not know who Jed Skeptic Media is.
Oh, well, they can look afterwards. Just let me pull it up. Let me read it to you.
So I'll give a brief intro to who Jed Skeptic Media is then. Jed Skeptic Media is a guy who is a model of an oblate spheroid of Earth, which is shite, and goes around attacking people as his defense of his shite model. That's Jed Skeptic Media in essence. He's recently accused us of being Jesuit priests, which we are not.
Well, speak for yourself. So, I've got it. 1 second. Okay. They surprised me. Okay. So just so you know. Antonio, hello, mate. I thought that you might want to bury the hatchet. So I have a proposal. How about I come down to Manchester and take you out for a beer, followed by the theatre? Do you like the theatre? Or maybe you would prefer a stroll in the park. Twilight seems the time that suits you best. And maybe I can bring my dressing gown. Winky face. Yours, Jed Skeptic Media.
Wow.
P.S. Wait, there's a P.S. P.S. Please don't share this with anyone.
Well, at least he's cap in hand, approached you nicely. It's fair enough.
I know. So for Jed Skeptic Media, although people did make a video saying that I was gay, I'm not gay. There's nothing wrong for gays, but if it helps you with your fantasies.
It's touching.
Okay, right. Fuck all that shit. Back onto the whole topic of religion and brainwashing and psyops and all of this. I've called this God Bash Part 2 because God can't be bashed, people. If the thing you think is God is a thing that you think requires your faith or has any kind of requisite that we can provide, then I'm sorry, you've bought the wrong God. The real thing that made everything doesn't require faith, doesn't require, or at least I would think, it doesn't require anybody's praise and adoration and things like that. So I called it God Bash Part 2 because God, a bit like me in my red hoodie, is invulnerable. God is not something that's vulnerable to lack of praise. It doesn't diminish. It doesn't go off into the west like the elves in the Lord of the Rings. He's more like Gandalf, you know. He doesn't need people around him. He can just sustain himself from whatever it is that he sustains himself or herself or themselves. So I wanted to go a little bit deeper into bashing the Catholics, who are always like, oh, why are you bashing the Catholics? Well, because lots of Catholics have raped lots of children, and lots of Catholic institutions have kidnapped children in Australia, in Canada, in the United States, in lots of places, native children, and made them go to school, made them stop talking their native language, made them wear clothes they don't want to wear, and kicked some of them down the stairs and thrown some out of windows. If you don't believe this, then do a little bit of research. But if you're a Catholic, I'm pretty sure that you'll be able to forgive that and not do the research. So you can kid yourself into thinking that this is just some dark Luciferian ploy to try to bring some kind of element of disturbance into the Holy Vatican Church. That church which could eliminate a lot of the world's ills, but chooses not to. And that church, you know, the one that represents God, that represents Jesus, that church. So I don't know if I'm offending people. And like I said before, this is, if you can be reached through offense, then I hope you're fucking offended. If you can't, then I really hope I don't hurt your feelings. But I do think that a lot of people, especially in the flat earth, which is, you know, the people we're talking to, I hope a lot of them can start to look outside of their parameters that were set there by others regarding things they know nothing about. Start looking outside of it and see that the world can be actually much, much kinder and much truer without religions, without all religions. We have this.
Just to interject, not religion. If you put it in that really massive bundle, it's going to offend absolutely everybody. Whereas when we talked about it earlier, we boiled it down to the externalization and the internalization of good and evil. And we use Jesus as the example. So if you have Jesus in your heart, you are a good person by the standards of Christianity. And evil is a dude. Evil's a dude called Satan that you can externally point to and blame. Now, with my own mother, who's is a Christian, like most of my family, my uncle's a pastor, you know, I've got a very Christian background. I put it to her today about this dude, you know, and she kind of gave me my own explanation back as a justification, saying, oh, no, good's kind of a thing that's around us that you can, you know, that will take on. And I was like, no. It's a dude. It's a guy called the devil, you know, and that's someone that people worship, the guys who are in charge. And what we get through our schooling is the joy and the praise and the adoration for this guy called Jesus. And when you watch the media and the news and the spin and the propaganda, you get the devil. And he's the guy who's basically, or it's pointed towards the guy who's running the show. You know, the guys with the lightning fingers, well, they're getting their power from the devil. You know, this dude. Well, yeah. And for me and for Antonio, this dude is nonsense. There's no dude. There's just guys. And I can't remember which show, this is Antonio's example, but I'm going to completely steal it. So you've got men, and these men point at a woman and say, you, woman, have got a connection to the devil. Therefore, we're going to march you to your death, set you on fire in front of a great big group of people. And that is because we're good guys. We're going to burn this woman because she's got a connection to the devil. Well, what has actually happened in that scenario has involved no other external dudes causing this to happen. What has in actuality happened is men have walked a woman to her death and burnt her. Well, that's men doing something extremely evil. Now, you could think that I'm talking about these evil Satanist worshippers marching a woman to her death, but it's not. It's the Christians marching a woman who might have God knows what, could be a paranoid schizophrenic for all we know, could have nothing wrong with her, could have pissed off the clergyman for all we know, whatever. They get tried, they get burned, that's evil. Done by men, not by a dude in the corner called the devil.
Now, if we think about where all of these notions come from, they come from the Bible. That's where they come from. We get told that the ancient Egyptians had Set and the Mayans had an equivalent. That's just what we're told by the same people who tell us that the Bible is true. So let's just consider this. You have a character called Jesus. Lovely, great. The embodiment of God, not God himself, otherwise there'd be no God in heaven whilst Jesus was here, but a kind of a partitioned version of God. If you're familiar with computers, then you know what I'm talking about. Now, this character, Jesus, believes in Satan. He believes in Satan so much that he actually has a conversation with him. Not only that, but he lets himself be taken to a high mountain where he can be shown all the kingdoms of earth. Now, what kind of pussy is Jesus that when the devil comes along and says, come with me, I'm taken to this high mountain, we're going, oh, okay. Are we supposed to believe this? That this courageous Jesus, selfless, ultra powerful, could stop the world turning if he wanted to, if it was a globe, that he would just go with Satan to the highest mountain, that must be Mount Meru, to see all the kingdoms under the sky? Are we to believe this? Or is this just a story? Because it sounds to me like it's just a story. Like there wasn't a really good guy who went along with the devil whilst the devil said, come to this high place where I could just throw you off and nobody would know anything about the divinity and sanctitude of forgiveness. No, it just goes with him. How innocent is that? But anyway.
But my angle is to take the same tact, but use the devil as the example so that I hopefully don't piss off 1 million Christians. You know, that's my objective.
Yes.
But if you take the same thing, is what I'm saying, and say, yeah, this guy that took Jesus to the top of the mountain, Mount Meru, isn't real. This guy, the devil, doesn't exist. The Christians have got to get out. Now, I want you to stick this in straight away because they'll immediately say, ha ha ha, no, that's the devil's trick.
Yes.
Nonsense also.
Yeah, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. A line from the film Angel Heart, okay? Now, that's not in the freaking Bible. It's in a film by Francis Ford Coppola, okay? Or was it Martin Scorsese? I don't know. Maybe it was Monty Python. But the point is, we have these ideas, these concepts of the devil and what it can do. That it has horns, that it doesn't have horns, that it looks just like a man, that it doesn't look anything like a man. All kinds of different stuff, okay?
I've got to interrupt again. But the most important thing is that there are people who, number one, worship him, and number two, believe their own bullshit.
Are you talking about religion?
No, I'm talking about Luciferianism. And
I know. It's exactly the same thing.
Quite touche.
Luciferians believe that there's a real entity that can make itself incarnate, physically present in their black masses, masquerade as one of the hooded characters. You'll never know which one because you can't see them. I mean, this is what I imagine because I've never been to one of these places. Although I did go to a really weird party one time that I don't remember very well. But the point is, these characters who call themselves Luciferians or Satanists, okay, they really believe in this idea of this external evil, that it has this embodiment. They don't think it's evil, by the way. They think that's the actual good guy. They say that the other guy, the Jesus story and the God story, that they're the bad guys. Okay,
and their passion is matched and equaled by the passion of the Christians that we see on the surface. The people, if we're going to pick on somebody, we might as well pick on a YouTuber. Why not? So Russian vids, open Christian, more than happy to promote his Christian ideals, and his passion for his Christian beliefs is equaled by the men in power. Now, this is something that a drum that he will bash himself over and over and over again. And he's right. You know, in the things he points out, in the hidden subliminal messages, in the amount of effort and time that's put into putting this crap into our media to program us. He's right about all of it. He's just not taken the next step. And the next step is to say, but yeah, all that's there for is to engage your time and energy and brain power and keep you enslaved into that paradigm. As I say, their passion for their belief in Satan is equaled by your belief in Jesus. And that is the whole point.
That's it. And so how did this happen? How did people externalize evil or anything that they see as the enemy of whatever it is that they want or that they perceive their God to want, whether this be a bright, good angel or a bright, bad angel pretending to be a good angel, okay? Whatever it is, whatever other people want, that's the opposite of what they might want, that's the enemy. That's what shaitan means in Hebrew, enemy. So, okay, we have, on the one hand, really good people who do lots of killing and stuff. Really bad people who do lots of killing and stuff. What's the difference between the two? Well, they say they're doing it for good, and they say they're doing it for good too. But these guys disagree with those guys, and they say, no, you're not. We're doing it for good. And these guys say, no, you're the liars. We're doing it for good. And these guys say, no, you're the liars. And this goes on back and forth. This is called division. What's religion for? For division. What's your religion? It's not the same as somebody else's religion. And you can say, oh, but we're all under the same umbrella of God. You don't know what this umbrella of God is. You don't know what God is. You don't know any of the qualities. All you know is that something that you can't fully comprehend or experience or explain exists. That's all you know. Now that your religion says there's also a negative side to this thing, you know, because by mistake, God made Lucifer, who then went and fucked everything up. So God had to restart the whole thing and then didn't snuff him out, just left him to carry on messing it up again. This is a shaggy dog story. It goes on continuously. And look at what religion has done. If we look at what religion has actually done versus what you imagine religion might have done, it's done the most evil things that you can imagine, including the torture devices of the Inquisition, which some Catholics think never happened. And if it did, it didn't happen to the degree that other people have said. What do you mean there are paedophile priests that are well known that have been jailed before the law was changed? Well, they weren't Catholic. So yes, they were wearing a cross. Yes, they were giving mass. Yes, they were taking the sacrament. But they weren't Catholic, obviously. So, no. They were Catholic. They asked for forgiveness. And, you know, ipso facto, into heaven. So the point for these kind of quite confrontational, antagonistic talks about religion is to try to bring people to the realization that religion truly is a psyop. All the religions, all of them don't know. All of them have made up stories to explain things that they don't know, in the hope of convincing others to give themselves power, to be stronger, to be bigger, to take over. And the people who want power and to be bigger and take over are not good guys. The guys who went to America and killed the people there, they did it in the name of Jesus. That's how they got away with it. That's how they did it. And the only way that they could have been coaxed into going and killing people that were peaceful, by the way, not like running around with tomahawks, scalping people. The whole scalping thing was started by the whites. Remember that little fact. The whites were cutting the long hair of the Native Americans. And this is why the Native Americans started cutting the hair of the whites. Because they thought, oh, I don't know why you're doing this, but we're going to do it too. It seems like you're doing it as some kind of insult, so we're going to do the same insult back. The only reason that the whites could go and do this killing, same reason as soldiers can go and do any killing. They've had the enemy dehumanized. They've been told that the enemy is evil, that what the enemy wants is an evil result that favors their side. That's what religion does. And yeah, you've got conciliatory religions. You've got elements of religion, like I mentioned on the last one, that are linked to reality. We all know that it's nice to be nice. So you get the religion saying, we're the nice religion. It's like, who's going to join? All the nice people. Brilliant. Oh, now look at those people. They're not being very nice, are they? No. Did you hear what they did? They did something really nasty. Oh, that's not nice. We should do something about that. What should we do? Kill them. That's how it goes. That's pretty much, you know, with slightly more elaborate configuration of thought development. But
well, that's something I wanted to ask you about. I mean, you spoke before about The Art of War, which is certainly not something I've read. But you mentioned the fact that we're being divided. Well, divide and conquer, there must be a connection to war, which makes us, doesn't matter which side of the fence you're on, the enemy, being infiltrated, being divided, being set amongst against each other. Very literally.
It literally is. That's the actual tool of religion. Religion wasn't made to have everybody come together and drive towards the same goal. That's not what religion was developed for. Let's remember, the guys that started religion were charlatans. Just repeat this to yourself. The people who started religions were charlatans. The people who started religions were charlatans. They were not connected to God. They were not talking on behalf of God. They did not have good intentions. They were charlatans. And charlatans don't want groups of people to get together and say, hey, I think that guy might be a charlatan. No, they're going to prefer if people are fighting amongst each other and nobody notices that the charlatan is a charlatan. So what do you have? You have charlatans. You have lots of different religions, all of which divide people. That's what they do. And yes, you can have Muslims and Jews and Christians sitting together in peace saying, oh, we all worship the same truth of the goodness of God. Wonderful. Now let's go and look round the corner where they're burning a mosque. Or let's go and look here where they're burning a synagogue. Or let's go and look there where they're burning a church. No, it doesn't play. It doesn't work. Okay? If religions wanted good, we would have good. But that's not what they're there for. They literally are there to divide and conquer, to keep us, the bulk of the population who are not charlatans, divided, distracted, and conquered. That's what they're here for. That's what religions were invented for. It's as simple as that. I don't know if anybody's in the chat. I hope Jed Skeptic's there. I'd like to invite him on.
I've been keeping an eye. I haven't seen him, but yeah.
Oh, okay. If there's anybody in chat who'd like to come on, let me know and I'll pass you a link. Robin Poe's here. Maybe she would like to come on.
I'll send her the link if she says yes in the chat. I'm sure we could do with somebody that's a bit more balanced. Would you like a chat? Robin Poe. See if she responds.
Unfounded statements. Antonio makes so many unfounded statements. Robin Poe, does your religion make any founded statements? Or is your religion made out of unfounded statements?
I mean, something else we've talked about before the show was about the amount of cognitive dissonance that you have when you talk about religions. And, you know, I'm going to say this and say I'm a Christian and put my hands in the air while I say it, but I'm openly having similar conversations that I'm sure people like Adam Joseph Doherty can relate to with my Christian family when I kind of question their understandings and their beliefs. Now, I'm not a biblical scholar. I'm not highly educated in the Bible. But then again, I don't need to be to see what we're trying to illustrate here today, which is that no matter how much you can tell me that, well, I take it on faith and I put my hand on heart when I do so. Well, okay, that's not really what flat earth is all about. So when you kind of point this out to other flat earth Christians, there's a moment of cognitive dissonance amongst a lot of them, which is very similar to this cognitive dissonance seen by the unknowing Luciferian worshipping globe supporters.
Yes, and they will defend, you know, in the same way that you will have globelings who will defend a globe model that they don't really understand. But you can also have globelings who will defend a globe model that they do understand. They just haven't seen the small flaws in it. The things that tell you, actually, no, it seems to be coherent and work, but it isn't. You have the people who are the same, the equivalent, in the religious camps. You have the people who will defend the religion without actually knowing many of the details. And then you'll have people defending their religion, knowing many of the details, but they haven't seen the little chinks in that armor. They haven't seen the little elements that are equivalent to the globe elements that don't quite play. They haven't seen that it's not actually a coherent story. They will say it is, just like the globe.
Can I just add something? If they have, they won't necessarily want to assess it anyway. In other words, it's a fear. It's the same as when people come to flat Earth and have to assess things that they don't necessarily want to assess, that they can ignore on the globe. Well, a lot of those things can be locked away in religion too. And another thing I want to point out is that we're not doing this we may get criticized of doing exactly what religion does by highlighting it. I know I've had the same thing. I've been accused of the same thing by Dave Weiss when it came to no trees. I was saying it's divisive. And his argument was, well, just by pointing out that it's divisive, that's divisive. You think, well, that's not really what we're here for. You know, we're not really here to dictate anything to anybody. This might sound like a long list of disclaimers, but it does have a point. You know, we're here because we want truth. That's the bottom line. So you are entitled to your belief, but selling it as truth is unreasonable. And most people, when challenged on it, that do understand that there's problems, will, as I've said before, have this moment of cognitive dissonance. They don't want to be proven wrong, because that's a scary notion, especially if you've invested a lot of time and effort into your understanding about your religion. If you're a priest or a pastor, there's no way you're going to want to assess it. You know, you're going to do everything but. You know, you might question other things that are on side topics. My uncle has debated, who's the guy that's accused of being...
Richard Dawkins.
Richard Dawkins. You know, he's asking these questions because he wants to tie it into his belief of the Bible. Not because he wants to necessarily debunk heliocentric system as Richard Dawkins does. He's there because he wants to demolish religion. But so he can program you with his globe nonsense. You know, what goes around comes around.
So the difference between Dawkins and what Nathan and I are doing is we don't want to trap anyone into a different belief system. We want to free people from belief systems, if anything. So like Robin Poe is saying that I'm portraying religion in a false light. No, I'm actually portraying religion in a true light, because the truth of the matter is, if you can actually hear what I'm saying clearly, is that all of the kind deeds that are done on this earth are done by humans.
And all the bad deeds are also done by humans. Back to there's no dude in the corner or sat on my shoulder. You know, I can go and rape and pillage and murder and do horrible things of my own volition. And that makes me evil. Me, internal, this guy, evil. Doesn't mean the devil has come and taken possession of my body. Doesn't mean he's whispered in my ear. Doesn't mean there's any poison been poured. It just means I'm evil. And men are evil. Equally, as Antonio has said, men do wonderful, good things. He gave the example on the last show of a disaster situation and the atheist and the Christian. And there's no weighing going on in terms of those two dudes, using this term a bit too much today, pulling people out of the rubble. You know, if you were to have the best man in the world, let's pick a different religion that we haven't picked on already, a Hindu.
Hindu.
Right, Hindu,
okay.
I picked it. So you've got a Hindu, and he's doing everything for his children, his family, really good working man, works in the community, gives everything he can, has a conversation with a Christian about whether or not he's going to heaven. Oh, hell no. No. You must accept Jesus. Otherwise, eternal damnation for you, my friend. I don't care what you've done. I've got Jesus in my heart. Therefore, I'm on my way to heaven. Now, you listen to me, you scumbag, is some of the attitudes that we get from Christians day in, day out. I mean, I don't know if you want to rattle off the list, Antonio, but I know certainly myself, Antonio, Patricia, who sat in the background, we get vitriol from these bastards who think that they're holier than now Christians. Well, fuck you guys is all I've got to say to you.
Yeah, they call themselves things like Anna loves the Lord. Now, if you think that saying you love the Lord gives you carte blanche to insult and abuse people, then your Lord's a fucker. And that's who you love. Okay? It's not a kind imaginary person. It's a fucked up imaginary person.
But this comes back to the externalization of evil. Now, we've said this for Flat Earth and drawn the association plenty of times. When you realize we're in a created environment, there is no long-standing Big Bang that explains everything anymore. You know, you've got a very different explanation for where you live. Well, that makes you take a long look at yourself and what you're doing. Now, for the globe heads that are stuck on the globe because they can put their skeletons in the closet and don't have to internalize anything, there's another camp of Christians that have the devil to point towards. Oh, we can save you from the devil. You know, the devil's path is what you're on at the moment. No, you are evil. You evil man. That's what I would say when I'd point the bony finger right at them, look them square in the eye, not at the devil on their shoulder. And these people, because they've externalized their ideas of what is good and evil, it's much easier to say, well, I'm righteous. I've accepted Jesus into my heart, and therefore I am going to heaven, regardless of what I do. Jesus died for my sins.
Now, the Nazi Party was Catholic. Just thought I'd point that out. The Nazi Party was Catholic. That's why Hitler went to the Vatican and received a blessing from the Pope. Now, people who think that Hitler's a good guy will say, yes, he was Catholic. People who think that Hitler was a bad guy will say, he was fucking Catholic, if they didn't know already. Okay? And also, this is other thing. When debating with globelings, which I've done a bit of, they will hope that you will say a word out of place so they can ignore the content of what you're saying and leap on that one word and say, aha, you said this word out of place, brilliant, we've got a get out clause. And religious people do the same. They will say, oh, I'm going to ignore the actual substance of what's being said because he said fucking. They will just have this objection. Oh, he swore. Oh. And they take offense. This is the thing. We started off calling peer pressure and religion. Okay, offense. What is offense? You didn't like something that was said, you didn't like something that you saw, or you didn't like something that you thought or were caused to think. Well, if you're offended, fuck you. Be offended.
There's more to it than that, because if you are completely comfortable in your understanding of something, or if something, let's put it more bluntly, if something is true, it doesn't matter what anybody says. You will argue till you're blue in the face. No one will convince you otherwise. If you have first-hand knowledge of something, there's just no convincing you of anything else. And if somebody comes along and presents something to you, you will sit back smugly, confidently, safe in the knowledge of your own understanding. Now, there's going to be a lot of Christians out there that are definitely not going to take that attitude. They are not going to sit comfortably on their chair and go, oh, these guys can happily have their opinion about the divisive nature of good and evil and Christianity and Satanism. I'm comfortable in my total and firm understanding because I have first-hand knowledge of the biblical book. No, what they actually say is, I have faith. Well, that's not the same as an absolute stone-cold understanding of what you have witnessed and experienced firsthand, which is the only guys that are ever going to sit back in their chair comfortable going, you can say what you like. I don't care. I'm quite happy. It doesn't faze me. I still know what's what. But there's going to be people that just go absolutely nuts.
Let's remember, talking about people going absolutely nuts. Let's just remember, in the same way that somebody can have the illusion that God spoke to them, or Jesus spoke to them, or showed them a miracle, or made an opportune event happen just for them. In the same way that people will be deluded into seeing the actions of Gandalf laying things out for them, Jesus laying things out for them. In the same way, you have people in churches in the US going, talking in tongues.
Yeah, tongues.
These people think they're talking God's message through their mouths. Okay, now this guy's going, that guy over there's going, Which one? What the fuck are they saying? Excuse my language. What are they saying? They're saying a message. God just had a little fit of saying things out that nobody could understand. Now, what God are you looking at? What does your God look like? What does it do? It throws fits and talks through the mouths of people spouting literal gibberish like blah, 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 blah. What is this? Or are those people?
You've also got the evangelical healing, so the men of God that will literally heal people through their. I talk so negatively about the men with lightning coming through their fingers, and I completely forget about the guys with the God power that heal people on the spot in the church ceremony, in the actual, during the service.
Yes, but this is the thing: the people who are there going blah, 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 or whatever they're doing, those people are convinced that they know God, that God spoke through them. Look, they have it on videotape too. It doesn't mean God was speaking to them. It doesn't mean there is a thing called God, because God, that term, which we understand, refers to something ineffable, has been kind of defined. God has these qualities. He's murderous. You're painting in a bad light. He says this in the freaking Bible. He wiped the whole of humanity apart from Noah and his family, and then made them inbreed so that the rest of the humans could come out. So this God that murdered all of the humans on the earth with the flood, that God speaks through people in the US gibberish. Oh, wait, that's not your God. Oh,
and here we have evangelical churches here. I've been to plenty.
Yeah. Yes. So, but this is the thing. Everybody will say, well, that's not my God. That's not my version of God. That's somebody else's God. Yes. Look at how divisive religion is. That's the point. That's what we're saying. That's why we're God bashing. We're not bashing your God. We're bashing the other people's gods. All of them together. But we're specifically not bashing yours. There. Are you happy now?
So, I like that. That's a great get out. Yes, I'll reiterate that. Just so we're clear, we're not bashing your God. Just everybody else's.
Every single one that is not your God. Let's not forget that God did say, your God said, do not worship any other gods. Do not put any other gods before me. Oh, you mean there are other gods? Or was God mistaken when he said that? Are there other gods? How many other gods? Is he talking about the Zeus, Thor, Odin, Krishna, all those guys? Is he talking about the gods of the forest? Is he talking about the gods of the Druids and the Celts? Is that what your God was talking about? Don't know. Sounds to me like gibberish. But at least Gandalf didn't do that. Gandalf didn't go around ordering people how to behave and what the mind of God wanted them to do. He just pointed out bad shit and good shit. And that's it. Quite a nice guy. You know, he rescues everyone. Let's not forget that. He rescues people from, death and absolute damnation, slavery, into being enslaved, into the worship is a religious word, of Sauron. So, if you were worshipping Sauron, would you know? He's not going to burn you in your sleep on the soles of your feet with a cigarette. No, he's going to be nice to you. That's why you worship him. But it's still false. And the whole notion, the whole idea that there are grown-up human beings who believe that their God is the right one, that their interpretation of this ineffable thing, their glimmer into this ineffable thing, is the right glimmer. Everybody else's is wrong. Or at least every other religion is wrong. Come on.
It gets defined by the hand and the brain of a man in every instance. So we don't really have a idea of God, because God is, as you put it, ineffable. It's an ineffable thing. But what we do have is pen and paper and fingers and hands and eyes and ears and concepts that we can develop. But to me, any notion that is able to be contextualized, therefore written down, is so much more base than any god that I could possibly imagine. In other words, if I can quantify it and imagine it, then it's just far more basic than God's ever going to be.
Yes, and we also anthropomorphize. We do this. We see monkeys doing something that looks vaguely like what humans might do, and we go, oh, look at them, they're having an argument about a game of cards. It's like, no, you don't know what they're doing, but it looks like they're having an argument about a game of cards. And we anthropomorphize. So we have the elements of existence of the course of creation. Thank you, Patricia. The course of creation somehow has human qualities, looks like a human. In fact, looks like both genders. Isn't that what the media is telling us now? Because God said, let us make them in our image. For some reason, God was talking to himself, or there was more than one of him or them. It gets complicated. Well, we don't know. We can just leave that till later. But the truth is, these are all qualities, anthropomorphizing of elements. It's like trying to say, oh, that electricity is a bit bullshit. No, it's just electricity. It does what it does. To say that it's a bit rude, a bit impromptu, a bit abrupt, all of these qualities could be said of electricity. If anybody's ever been shocked, it's pretty freaking nasty, and it's definitely abrupt. It doesn't creep up on you and shock you. It freaking shocks you, you know. So,
but to put that in a reverse with humans, you've got a different element, and this brings in something that we were discussing and having a good chuckle about before the show with Bob and Cami and Patricia, which was, you know, an element of something that's nefarious. So there's a guy that's impersonating a whole bunch of flat earthers at the moment that's sending out a whack load of emails. It's amusing. It's happened loads of times before. And
yeah, like a few. I don't know why these guys do this. A few months ago, same thing. That was two months ago.
2 months ago, 8 months ago,
8 months ago again.
It's just old news. There's people out there that will send out emails, and they're fake emails from me, or fake emails from Cami, or fake emails from Mark Sargent. So you get an email in your inbox and go, oh, Mark Sargent's got in touch with me, and you'll read it and very quickly realize, why is Mark Sargent contacting me by email when usually we keep in touch by this other method or whatever, you know? Yeah. So it's pretty obvious very quickly that somebody's that's playing you. But the point is that if you were less savvy, or you didn't have a close relationship with a lot of people, or you were caught on the wrong day, or you were on the fringes of somebody, and this has actually happened to Amir. So Amir was contacted by one of these people, and it was phrased in such a way that he thought it was genuine and took quite a lot of offense to it and got quite upset. My point is that you could view that as evil, and therefore the guy in the corner, this thing that's happening to me, this horrible thing, is the devil at work. The devil's been at work, and he's duped me. He's caused me to feel bad, and I hate the devil, that evil. No, wrong. There's a guy somewhere who's decided that he's going to write emails, and he's going to piss a load of people off if he can. On the whole, everybody's had a good laugh at his expense. He doesn't know that, but one person has got upset. They could view it as evil. It's actually just like in every instance, somebody at the end of it. Doesn't matter what the deception is. If it's the globe, there's going to be a guy at the end of it, some nefarious character
or woman.
Oh, by man, I mean in the open sense of man.
I'm playing Life of Brian. Or woman.
Oh, right. You drop in something in so we can have a transition to a different subject.
Yeah, no. I'm just saying that the person, or well, the people. I don't think it's the same one, because the kind of wording was very different the last time. So, I think it could be a man, could be a woman. You know, I'm just saying. You know, yes, could be a man. Yes, could be a woman.
Right. Okay, you weren't using that Life of Brian transgender scene as a link into.
No.
You were just saying, right, okay, fine.
Yeah, but what you're saying is, so somebody can say that's evil, therefore Satan made him or her do it. Or you could say that person themselves is evil doing this. Okay, you can say that. I can say, they're just a bit stupid, a bit delusional, a bit whatever, a bit bored, you know, who knows? But the point is, either you will say that the person is evil or the actions are evil. The person is just a vehicle for that evil. And this is what Lucifer is. Lucifer is the element of evil, this nebulous, ineffable evil that seeps through people's consciousness and directs their actions. In which case, what the hell was Jesus talking to?
Yeah.
What took him to the top of the mountain and what said, if you bow down before me, I will make you king of the world?
You've summed up nicely you summed up nicely what my mother tried to give me back in terms of the description. You've done a much better job of summing up what she said to me. But then you've got to boil it back down to that doesn't include a guy, the dude. You know, there's no dude in that equation. And that's not what the Bible says anyway.
What do you mean?
Well, you're saying it's there's a guy walking another guy up to the top of a mountain.
Yes, that is what the Bible says. I know the Bible is not saying this nebulous, ineffable, anti-God, polar opposite that works through people's hearts in the same way that the invisible God works through people's hearts. Like, no, that's not how things go. That just isn't how things go. How do we know this? Because men made that up. What kind of men? Charlatans. How do we know they're charlatans? Because they wrote a bunch of lies. How do we know they're lies? Because they're not true. That's how we know. It's very simple. Was Job the greatest man in the East? Or was the Emperor of China at the time? The Emperor of China was greater than Job. It's really simple. Really simple. Did God say to Moses, tell them to let you go or I'll kill all the firstborn? Did that really happen? No. Does God sit in the Vatican or your nearest paedophile church? I'm not saying your nearest church is a paedophile church. I'm saying your nearest paedophile church. Does God sit there going, oh dear, I'm noting everything you're doing. I'm making notes. Oh, I wouldn't have done that. Is that what God does? Or is God the rapist and the victim? Or is God something you really can't comprehend? We can say it's this, or it's that, or maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. The truth is, we don't freaking know. And the idea that we're somehow capable of guessing correctly, and if we did guess correctly, do nothing about it, because let's face it, if Jesus did come back, he would go straight into a psychiatric ward. That's where he'd go. He wouldn't go to the United Nations, enthrall everyone with sorcery, and have the world suddenly become great. He'd be in a psychiatric ward or jail, or just killed like so many of the complementary doctors. That's what would happen. You think the Vatican's going to say, oh, okay, because Jesus will go into the Vatican and go, yo, where's my dough? I said, where's my money? Is that what Jesus would do? Is that why the Vatican is hoarding it all? No, come on. This is a ridiculous, absurd notion, and you entertain it as an adult as if it was some evolved adult notion. It isn't. It's a childish notion.
And especially in flat earth, especially when we are in an arena that we are searching out absolutes, facts, truth, and we are challenged for them day in, day out by the people who believe complete nonsense and have maths proofs and vague ideas about things and educated guesses. That's what we're having to come up with absolutes and proofs and facts against, and define those two things constantly to people who don't understand them and don't understand where they live and don't understand their own model. So we're trying to get truth, fact, reality across to people daily. So to be presenting that and then saying, but have faith in this book, no, it doesn't jive at all.
Yeah, and have faith in this translated book. because translations are always exactly a mirror to the actual meaning, always exactly what the original language was saying. Well, I don't know if you've ever looked at the instruction manuals for anything electrical, where you have various different languages. They're all translations of the same thing. Have a look. Just next time you buy something from IKEA or wherever, where you have various different languages explaining the same thing, you see that it's not a mirror. So the same happens with translations of scriptures. Look at what they're called. They're called scriptures. They're not called stories. What is this? Oh, it's a story. Like, what is this? It's a scripture. Oh, a scripture. Ooh, it's a freaking story. That's what it is. Scripture. It was written by the hand of God. Was it really? Well, kind of, but he put his hand into the glove of the hand of the person writing it. That's what he did. Like, no, he didn't. That's just a freaking made up story. Who said that he did that? Well, a different story says that he did that. It's like, what? It really is absurd. I'm sorry to do this, you know, to people who need religion as a crutch. But the reason we're doing this, we're not evil. We're not doing this to mess your life up. We're doing this so that you'll see that when you realize you don't need the crutch, you're free. But people need the crutch. They say, oh, but they do a lot of goodness. They gave a lot of consolation when such and such died. And like, yeah. Okay. So is that a good reason to ignore the paedophilia or the hoarding of wealth or the imposition of laws like no condoms in Africa and stuff like that? Is it a good enough reason that they consoled your auntie? Is that a good enough thing? Because let's face it, if the church wasn't there, your auntie would have been consoled by her friend or by the guy at the shop or by somebody else, because that's what humans do. They console each other. But along comes a guy in a dress, not star gods. Don't go on about star gods, Nathan. Along comes a guy in a dress wearing 2 shoes who starts saying stuff, you know, like, oh, it's the will of God, and oh, they're at rest. Like, yeah, you can see they're at rest, not freaking moving. They're dead. That's what's happened. But no, the priest knows more stuff than you do. The priest is in contact with the Lord. The Lord sees through the priest's eyes. That priest then goes and buggers children. God wants to be looking away for that specific deed. And yeah, I will drone on about it.
It's slightly psychopathic is exercising an element of control over you, and this is the most prevalent thing in any religion. It's designed to control you. That's the only purpose. And what the only way to free yourself of that is what we talk about when we talk about television. You know, if that's the Luciferian control over you, then you turn your back on it. You just stop watching it. You stop listening to the radio, and you quickly find, oh, life is much better without it. You know, I've got more time to do nice things. And the same applies to the Christian. You know, you can look at it in exactly the same way. You know, you can turn your back on it. You're not going to get dragged down to hell because you have turned your back on that. That story no longer has any grip over you. Now, that's not to say that because you don't think that you'll go to hell, that you're suddenly going to become a bad person. Au contraire, you will suddenly be a bit more introspective about the things you do. A lot of, as we've said on this very show, a lot of the holier than thou Christians, Anna loves the Lord, will be evil people. You know, possibly a little bit more than others. Now, that's not to say that it's because there's no, you know, causality being drawn. She's just another person. But all of us have the capability of being good and evil. It's not that relinquishing yourself of any religion doesn't have to be Catholics, although that's the one Antonio's decided to focus on mostly in this particular show. It's just a freedom from something that has control over you. It doesn't matter what that control is.
The reason I'm focusing on Catholics is that it's the biggest of the Christian churches. That's what the Catholic Church is the biggest. The Roman Catholic Church. What were the Romans? The guys that came with the swords and all the killing? Those guys were the Romans.
And what did the Romans ever do for us?
They brought us viaducts and roads. So they brought us viaducts and roads. Oh, that's okay that they did all that killing. It's forgivable now because they brought us education. It's like, right, these are the Roman Catholic. So, okay, Roman Catholic, what do? You go to church, you congregate. What you were saying, Nathan, is if you detach yourself from television and from the nefarious activities designed to suck you in and keep you controlled, then you can start to study those things, as long as you do it askance and you don't get sucked back into it. But with religion, you go every week for your top up, okay? Make sure you've got your hair combed, make sure you're wearing clean clothes, make sure you don't smell, make sure you smile to everyone who you don't give a fuck about, and give them the hand. It's so nice to, peace be with you. That little moment is nice, but you don't give a shit about that person. You don't know a thing about them. They don't know a thing about you. For that brief instant, they're wishing you good luck. They saw you drunk on the street. They wouldn't come and try and take you home. They pretend they didn't know you. That's what would happen, okay? Now, I bet you there's not a single Christian there who's got arthritis, who's sitting on the pew, hearing whatever's being said by the priest, who's thinking, oh, I'm looking forward to the next stage where I kneel down. Because I've seen this. I was Catholic. That's why I can discuss Catholics as much as I want. They try to manipulate and warp my worldview. So, they didn't succeed. They didn't try hard enough. I don't know. Or maybe I was resistant because of, God made me fortified. But you're in church, the priest is talking, and now all of a sudden you've got to stand up. If you don't stand up, all these non-judgmental Christians will go, they're not standing up. And then, so you stand up and you do whatever you do. Then you sit down for a bit longer. Then you stand up again. Then sometimes you sit down, but sometimes you go straight down to kneeling, and you kneel, and everybody does the same. And I will wager that there isn't a single person there who sat down thinking, oh, I'm looking forward to the standing up bit, or I'm looking forward to the kneeling down bit, or, oh, I've got this impulse to kneel down. I think I'll kneel down now. No, because everybody else will say, what's that person? Look at them showing off how devoted they are to God. Unless that person happens to be dressed like a nun, which they go, oh gosh, nuns must be so much more devoted. She just kneeled down out of the blue. It's freaking absurd, people. It really is. It is. It's funny. I'm going to go to church on a Sunday. I'm just going to go to church. I'm going to sit in the front and I'm going to ask the priest, how do you know? I'm going to ask Patricia to record it. I wonder what will happen.
Please don't. Please, God, don't do that.
Yes, I am. I'm going to say, how do you know? Like that. And Jesus said, how do you know? That all those who, how do you know what Jesus said? If it's
because it's written, that's why.
Yes, it's written, that's why. What language was it written in? Well, either Greek or Latin or another language. I don't know. How do you know that it was written from what Jesus said? Or whether Jesus was alive or not? Or whether any of it is true? And are you a paedophile?
Let's not. Oh God, this is going to descend into terribleness. It's so far been kept quite poignant. So let's not label all Catholics as paedophiles. I'm
not. All that I'm saying is this: it's a very simple, quite poetic truth. Every single child who's been raped in a church, when they see the cross and those church spires, do you think that they're filled with love, or do you think they're filled with what? Well, you think. I won't say any words. What do you think the child who's raped, and I was never raped, let that be made absolutely clear, because Adam Joseph Doty did say, you've seen some very negative sides in the Catholic Church. He said, yeah, I have. It wasn't rape, okay? But every single child who's been raped in a church, later, when they see a church, do they have lovely thoughts, do you think? Or what thoughts might go through their heads out of the actions that a man who's protected by the entity that protects the building in which he committed these actions? What do you think that person will think as they mature, as they grow?
Yeah, mess you up good and proper.
Yes.
Think terrible thoughts about the church.
Yeah, but you travel around in the UK and, you know, I have this condition, electrohypersensitivity. And maybe I shouldn't say this because a special kind of van could pull up outside my house and beam me with you know, directional energy and, you know, make me get a headache. But when I see microwave towers...
I don't think they bother.
No, probably not. But the point is, when I walk around, when I travel around, I just dunk, there's another telecommunications mast, there's another one, there's another one. I can feel one over there somewhere. I look around, walk around the building, freaking there's one there in some unfamiliar place, okay? I can feel it. I can feel what direction they come from. But I see these things. They don't fill me with happiness. They fill me with, oh, shit. And I've wondered, Robin Poe and other Catholics, what does a child who was molested by a priest in a church think when they see a church? The building that when you see fills you with, oh, I can relax in that place and commune with God. That same building, that same kind of architecture, what do they think? What do they feel? And how did your God allow that to happen?
Well, couldn't you say the same thing about teachers or any other group of people that has nefarious characters amongst them?
Yes, but they don't do it in a church. And school buildings have all kinds of different shapes. And they don't stick out as much as churches do.
Right, so you're saying it's because of the distinctive nature of the building?
Yes, and the fact that they're protected, whereas teachers aren't as protected, unless they're a Catholic school next to a Catholic church where they have tunnels underneath, like in a Hamstead.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Give context to that, because I don't want to leave this show now you've mentioned Hamstead. This is something that Jaren's covered quite heavily. I'd rather you just covered it on this show, because why not?
Okay, so Hamstead Heath in London, a church linked to a school, like so many Catholic schools are linked to an actual church, either physically or very nearby, separated by a small wall. And they have tunnels between the two, so that children can be taken through and raped and all kinds of stuff done, and then go back into the class. Okay, now these children don't go around going, oh, I've just been raped. They don't. That's not how it works. That's not how these people act. Don't forget, these people are adept at brainwashing and manipulation. So the children get taken, they come back, and they sit sullen for a while in the classroom. That's what happens. Okay, if you're not one of the children that's being raped, that's what happens. Now, you might have gone to Catholic school. You might have seen this. You might think back and go, huh, I do actually remember thinking, why is the teacher just taking that kid out? And when the kid came back, why did the kid sit there with tears in his eyes? Okay, this is what happens. And in Hamstead Heath in London, this is happening, or at least has been happening until recently. When this was brought attention to the authorities informed the church. The church had renovations where all the tunnels and everywhere that the children reported were the rooms used for these things were suddenly sealed. Okay, and end of story. The priests are protected. The person who wrote the law so that priests were no longer deported and prosecuted, which is what John Pope II inherited. John Pope II inherited a series of laws for Catholics and for priests, and those laws said if a priest is accused of any violent act or any abusive act, once that's reported to the authorities, what happens is that priest is suspended. An investigation ensues. If that priest looks like he's guilty, that priest is defrocked and is no longer a priest. And then that priest can be prosecuted like a normal human being. But Ratzinger changed that law in the 70s. It took a while for all the churches to catch up, but he changed it so that when a priest was accused of one of these crimes, the police would communicate with the head of that diocese. And the head of that diocese would move that priest to a different diocese. And if that happened in that other diocese, they would be moved to a second moved diocese. And if it happened in that diocese too, they would be moved to a third, this time abroad, this time like Brazil or Bolivia or one of those countries, Africa maybe. And if it happened there too, let's not forget what's actually happening is word of mouth, and people are saying, hey, these Catholics aren't very good. It's not very good for Catholics altogether. then that priest would be taken to the Vatican, where he would live out the rest of his life, but not be defrocked. That's the law, the ecumenical law of the Catholic Church. Now, I don't know whether that's being written off or changed. I don't pay attention to it anymore. But I do recall that Ratzinger made an apology, a public apology about paedophilia in the church. And what he said was, the church would like to apologize to all the harm that has been brought to the church, or this person, he, would like to apologize to all the harm that has been brought to the church by these accusations of paedophilia. Not would like to apologize to the harm done to the children by the church, but he would like to apologize to the church for all the harm that the accusations have brought. Now, recently we had a case where a video was passed around of Hillary Clinton defending two guys who raped and tortured a 12-year-old girl. She defended them. They got off scot-free. The way she did this was by saying that the girl had been fantasizing. She was 12, had been fantasizing about being with an older man, had been fantasizing about being raped and abused, and had made up the rest of the story. The doctor's records weren't allowed somehow, and any samples of semen and blood and things like that were all disallowed, including the semen and blood, her blood, on the guy's underwear. Okay? Now, the way she did this was by lying and twisting things. Now, what did Ratzinger do? He said, we apologize for the harm that has been brought to the church from these accusations of paedophilia. That's twisting, isn't it? That's the kind of thing that Hillary Clinton did. And that's what the head of the Roman Catholic Church did. And then, later, with a new pope, you have them doing a song to Lucifer. Oh, but they don't mean Lucifer in that way. They mean Lucifer in this other way. They mean when Lucifer is the name given to Jesus, not the name given to Lucifer, the angel that was cast down.
What are you talking about? I'm not following you now. I've lost you.
Easter, they sang a song to the Pope, and the song says, you know, how great are you, Lucifer, with your flaming wings, and so on and so forth. Should we play it? We can play it. We won't get a copyright strike.
If you want to do it, it's your show. Okay,
yes. So, will you take over whilst I look for it?
Da, 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 da. What do you want me to say? We've bashed on every religion. Nothing I can say.
Oh, I'll tell you what you could do if you want. You could go and read comments from the other from the other one that we did, or you can just chat with people in the chat room.
I can see what's going on in the chat room a little bit. It's going to be a few pauses while we bring up this video. But give me a précis. What is it exactly? It's
what the video I'm bringing up?
Yeah, it's the song.
I'm doing a search. It's called "Is the Song Vatican Lucifer?" Let's see what this brings up.
Rather than having today, you might as well start.
There you go.
On screen.
I have it. Right, and this is not to single out Robin Poe, but Robin Poe will definitely defend this and say, no, you're misunderstanding it. You're misunderstanding it. They are not saying Lucifer in the way you think they're saying Lucifer. They're saying Lucifer in the other way of saying Lucifer. Yeah, Lucifer meaning light bringer, light carrier. Yes, we know. That's why that name was given to Lucifer. But let me screen share. And to some Christians, this might be shocking. So screen share.
Because, yeah, we've not said anything shocking up until now. So best get the disclaimer in early.
Absolutely. Am I screen sharing, Nathan?
You are, yes. That's me.
Oh, we spoke about this, about the terms that are used on the flat earth, which are pretty cool. Like, hey, am I sharing? That's a pretty cool term.
Am I coming through okay?
Yeah. Am I sharing? It's like, yeah, well done. You learned about sharing. Pope Francis declares Lucifer as God. That's what this says, okay? Does he declare Lucifer as God? I don't know. But the song, well, see what you think yourself. I'm going to make it full screen. Am I sharing?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
Flammas eius, Lucifer matutinus inveniat. Idei, in quam Lucifer, qui nescito casum, Christus filius tuus, qui regressus ab inferis, humano generis serenus ibuxit, et tecum vivit et regnat in saecula saeculorum.
I caught that, did you?
I did.
Then this goes into a big spiel of stuff. I'm going to go back. Just play it again. Never mind that.
Flammas eius, Lucifer matutinus inveniat. Idei, in quam Lucifer, qui nescito casum, Christus filius.
That's the killer. Let me just go back. May I say, O Lucifer, who knows no setting,
Christus
Christ your Son,
filius tuus, qui regressus ab
who came back from the
inferis,
dead and shed his peaceful light to the human race.
humano generis serenus ibuxit, et tecum vivit et regnat in saecula saeculorum.
I think it's frozen up my end now, Antonio.
Say again?
I think it's frozen up on the live feed just at the end of there.
Okay, well, that's okay. I think it is, the point was kind of made.
Indeedy.
Let me refresh the other window. So that's the song they sang.
You're
It
still
is.
sharing the screen.
Yeah, I'm trying to stop. Right, stop. So, any questions about what God the Catholics worship? Any questions about what Catholics unknowingly subject to? I don't know. Is there another meaning to Lucifer? Yep, there is. Is Lucifer the name of God? Don't know. According to that, Lucifer's son was Christ. That's got to take a bit of cognitive dissonance to warp that into no, that was not Lucifer that was declared the father of the Christ. It meant Lucifer in some other way. Well, no, sorry. Lucifer with a capital L is a name. It's not an adjective. If it was an adjective, it wouldn't have a capital L. So, unfortunately, you just saw the Vatican singing a song to Lucifer about Lucifer's son, Christ.
And can I just say, like, subscribe, and comment below?
Yes, okay. Because the truth is, we're about truth. Sometimes the truth is unpalatable. Sometimes the truth frees you. Sometimes the truth messes you up big time. But if the truth messes you up big time, you've been doing something freaking wrong. So, I don't know.
Deal with it.
Sorry, ADR. Any Christians still in the hangout? I don't know. No, and this is the freaking the cunning part of it, is that there are good Christians despite all of this. Why are they good Christians? Because they're good people. Would they be good if they were not Christians? Yes. So I ask myself, why are they Christians? Why not just be good people? I don't know.
Yeah, I knew a guy with schizophrenia. He was good people.
That's close to the. That's offended me.
Anyway, do you want to round it out?
Yeah. Okay. And this time I'm going to leave it to you to round out with the most offensive or inoffensive, whatever. The floor is yours, Nathan.
You want something deeply offensive from me to round the show out with?
No, it doesn't have to be offensive. It has to be absolutely 100% true, undeniable, and verifiable by anyone.
Okay, that's easy then. Right. Antonio and I are extremely grateful to everybody who joined us live and to everybody who joined us in the chat. And yeah, keep it flat, as Patricia Steer would say.
Thank you, Nathan. I now have to try and find the window. Okay. Do you want to wrap up again? No. Anything else you'd like to say, though, Nathan? Because the truth is, it looks like people are enjoying the chat.
All right. I've been watching the chat, yeah.
I tell you what I will do, because I need the toilet. If there's anybody in the chat who would like to come on and hang out for a while, not a very long time. No? Okay. Fuck off.
Just round it out there, because otherwise I'll be sat trying to keep dead air from from your toilet break. Nah, just end it there.
Okay, though.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes. See you later, Nathan.